So today we're just going to be doing XSS or cross-site scripting. I'm going to give you a brief introduction. Dark mode users, please burn, because I love light mode. So in the next 20 minutes, we're just going to learn what XSS is, how to exploit it, find out about some of the famous XSS exploits, because I just think that's fun. And then we'll talk briefly about how XSS manifests in CTFs, just because half of our thing is that we do CTFs, and it's fun to do CTFs. So bear with me. Next slide. Yes, I'm going to be switching tabs. So I'm going to just be working off this to explain what XSS is. So this looks like, well, like, except if you ignore like the SRC thing where they're telling you what the source code looks like, this is probably like something that you would see in like a normal website. This might be like a search bar or something, and you're like, hey, like, you know, that's pretty normal. We can like type in like I don't know why I typed in DSA, but we can type in like this. It'll show something up, and it'll be like, cool, that's awesome. Can we do something interesting with this? Yes, because like I'm doing a presentation here and it would be really boring if I could not. So what I could do is I could type, say, script alert 1. I probably fucked up typing somewhere in there. Yeah. Script. And what this will do, if I hit this now and hit go, is it'll pop up an alert and it says 1 because I told it to do so. Why did that happen? Well, essentially, XSS, if you remember from week 1, SQL injection was basically where we decided to say you didn't properly pass your input, you didn't properly sanitize it, and so you just took whatever you got and ran it as an SQL like bit of code. This is quite similar with an XSS injection here, right? So what we do is, like, say for example we type in an X, this page. For fuck's sake, can you be something useful for me? Nope, you're never gonna be useful for me. Let's fuck it. This should work. So like this page, you can see here, it's got the the letter X here, but we sort of told it to do so. If we're doing XSS, however, what I essentially have done is when I typed in that script tag, it said, hey, like browser, this is a script. Now you've got to do an alert, do the alert, and then show me the script. And so like, you can imagine the possibilities for this sort of thing if I'm able to arbitrarily execute code on someone else's computer, right? And so here was where we go back to this, and I go back to here. So like, what can you do with XSS? Just like a heads up for people, like illegal things are still illegal. I'm going to show you some examples of like what people have done with XSS. I'll just talk about them in general. But like, you shouldn't do this, and that's naughty and bad, shame. Don't get us in legal trouble. So like some of the things you can do is like you can obviously steal cookies, and if you steal cookies, then you might be able to like log in as other people or hijack their sessions. You can do things like retweeting. So the image I've got attached here is this sort of like, there was this like Twitter platform thing called TweetDeck, and whenever you inputted like an emoji, it would just completely skip all of its previous sanitization and input. So you could just do XSS like this, which essentially just got you to like whoever like loaded this script within their like TweetDeck browser or whatever it was, you would just automatically retweet this heart emoji to everybody else. And so that is quite a thing that occurred. You can also like use script to inject fake login pages that'll let you like do sorts of like scripting or like just fish these sorts of things. And finally, you can just like steal info. Like if there's a stuff in the session, like, you know, bank transaction histories or whatever, you might be able to get some of that information out. And so I think it's probably wrong to talk about famous XSS exploits without talking about the Sammy is my hero worm sort of thing. And so this is basically back in the days of MySpace when we didn't know cybersecurity and it was just a vague passing concept in people's minds. We had like somebody discovered essentially an XSS exploit on MySpace and just basically meant that every single person's profile got this like added Sammy as their friend and typed in Sammy is my hero. So these are just sorts of like the ideas that you might be able to do with XSS if you're able to get really, really good at it. And that's why it's incredibly important to protect yourself against it. In CTFs, I think the XSS, like, because XSS vulnerabilities typically target the users of websites, it's kind of like difficult for like us to right now imagine how that would be directly useful, because obviously if you're like not an idiot, you wouldn't be typing in malicious code yourself. And there's no real point to making your own computer run bad script because your code isn't going to get you to flag. Like if you had it on your computer, you'd already have the flag. It'd just be kind of redundant at that point. So what most CTFs do is they would run, say, like a bot or something that would periodically scan or like load the page that you are trying to XSS into. And then like at that point in time, if you're able to trigger a successful XSS, that bot will then trigger it on your behalf. And then essentially you'll be able to get data from that bot. Sometimes it's the flag directly. Sometimes it leads you down another trail of like breadcrumbs. All sorts of interesting stuff can occur. A lot of the times CTF challenges are about one, figuring out where you can inject, and two, trying to bypass any of the like sort of protections that they have got in place. This could be things like, you know, input sanitization or their headers or all those sorts of things. Won't get into it. This is a sort of a basics of XSS. So one thing to keep in mind is that where to inject is not always obvious. So we're going to do another example of XSS here. And so what we can see in this particular challenge is, hey, there's no like direct input field. I can't just like type in script and get them to run something for me. Where can I possibly actually have some user input so that I'm able to inject some code? If you look at the SRC or the source, well, you can like you sort of get this interesting thing. It says like, hello, and then it wants to like use this variable q, and it gets this variable q from like location.hash.substring1. What does that mean? I'll skip the thing where I like Google it and like whatever. Basically, it means that anything that I penned after this hashtag is going to be reflected within the site. Probably shouldn't have said hi. And so you can see I typed hi and then it says hello, hi. Kind of redundant, but there we go. So this is now a place where I can maybe potentially inject something. So let's try that payload I did earlier. Hopefully I type it all correctly this time. Okay, yep, that looks good. Let's try this. And you'll see, so go load. And you'll see like, it looks legit, it looks okay. It looks like it's sort of done what it does because of how HTML works, anything that's within tags that's not meant to show, so a script tag is not going to pop up here. So I would suspect that this has gone through to the page somehow, but if we look here, why do I click badly? For the love of God, no, behave. What am I looking for? Yeah, so if you look here, it does look like that, like it's properly loaded this into the page, right? Like if you imagine it says hello and then it has my script. So why didn't it pop up with the alert? Basically, I think it's basically like the order of loading within the browser or whatever. So basically like, essentially it did not load it because it was something that was added post to the full page loading. So we have to do it instead, trigger some script to run at some point in time that we're able to define. I think the easiest way that most people do that in these sorts of things is they try and get an image, and you can see I've already typed this out at some point, so it's going to autocomplete for me, is essentially append instead an image. The source is some random blank stuff, like doesn't matter because I'm deliberately trying to get an error. And then once it causes an error, give me the alert. And let's see if this works. Yeah, and now it works. And so that's possibly like sometimes you see people, they try and like, you know, just directly filter out script tags. This is potentially a way that you're able to do so. For this particular example, it's sort of like because of the way that like browsers load things, this is able to just be like, hey, we're trying to load an image here. It didn't work. So what do we do when it doesn't work? Well, the on error property says we give it an alert and it alerts 1. Great. Well, if you imagine this was something more malicious, if it was something like, hey, steal this person's cookie and send it to my session or send it to my server, that would probably be bad, probably should try and avoid it. So I think what we have to take away from here is, one, these are sort of the things that you're able to do with XSS, I guess. Look out for where you're able to inject. It's not always completely obvious. Today's challenges are going to be like the XSS game. So this is going to be worth points. I'll release the challenges slightly later. Essentially, if you just Google for XSS game, the first link, xssgame.appspot.com, whatever. Really, really basic, really, really nice sort of like introduction to XSS. Try and get this done within the next 2 hours. I think that would be quite impressive. If you're slightly more advanced, there's this also like set of challenges that I found. For all of these, essentially your goal is to try and trigger an alert on the website. Once you're able to trigger the alert, just like wave us down, say, hi, we've managed to do it. And then first one to do it obviously gets chocolates. Otherwise, we'll just manually give the flag so you're able to get points. Because again, I was lazy and could not be bothered setting up a bot to crawl all of these things or set up challenges in a particular meaningful way. And finally, if you've done both of these or you think that you're just a super hot whiz, there is, I think, some challenges still left on the beginner CTF, which again is going down today. But there are some like XSS challenges left there, and I think there were only like 1 or 2 solves on most of them. So good luck, have fun, get that bread. Bye.